All right, so let me just set this here. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Um, Thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you. All right, guys. Was having a lot of difficulties, so hopefully I'll get set up again next week. I'll get settled in next week. But nonetheless, thank you guys. I made it to the required amount of subscribers to get this rolling on YouTube. So moving forward, I'm going to be doing YouTube until I can find a way to merge Facebook with YouTube. Anyways, this is the weekend after Thanksgiving. So a lot of times people are just probably just traveling back, winding down. But I just want to get straight to it. I don't want to be here long because I really do want to make sure that I get right to the point. So again, my name, if I haven't said it already, my name is Angela B. I'm just a sister in the faith for now. I'm just a sister in the faith that had a radical change on May of 2022. And ever since then, I'm just like, okay, God, I'm just rocking and rolling with you, and making sure that I promote that people read their Bible. I promote biblical sound teaching, and I also promote for prayer. I absolutely believe that prayer can change all things. I'm not one of the people, that just says those things. No, I have seen prayer change my life tremendously. I have seen prayer change different areas of my life when I was obedient to God. All right. So, as the title says, I believe I named the title Purging Before Building Your New Season. And I do believe that whoever you are, I'm pretty sure God has been speaking to you about building. God has been speaking to you about what you want to do in your new season. All right. And a lot of times we focus on the things that we want to build on. We focus on the goals that we want to build on. We focus on just different, sectors of what we want to build on. And a lot of times we don't take the time to ask God, hey, can you shine your light on the relationships that I have? Can I go into this new season with this new relationship? Can I go into this new season with the relationships that I have? Or do I need to do some reevaluation? And I believe that a lot of times we don't want to take that route with God, with asking Him to shine His light on our relationships because we just don't want to face it. We don't want to face when it's time for God to shine His light, because a lot of times when He shine His light, when you ask God to shine His light on areas in your life that has not received light from Him, from God, it may have been years, may have been months, and a lot of times we just don't want to face it. We don't want to face what God is going to show us, because a lot of times we be seeing the flags, we be seeing the patterns, we be seeing the signs that I may need to get this person out of my life. We be seeing the signs from God, but we make excuses. A lot of times, if we love the person a lot, we don't want to go down that road because we want to focus on, oh, well, let me just focus on all the positive things. But focusing on all the positive things versus if God is telling you, hey, you need to get this person out of your camp. You're trying to build on faulty grounds. And a lot of times when you're going into a new season, you have to make sure that you're found. If you're saying that, hey, God, my foundation is going to be built on you. My foundation is going to be built on your principle. I'm inviting you into these different areas of my life that I didn't invite you in before. I'm in high expectation. I'm in a faith mindset that in this new thing that I'm building, whatever that I'm building in this new season, I'm believing to build X, Y, and Z. you got to understand the foundation has to be like all, we have to submit everything, right? We can't just pick and choose what we want to submit to God, especially if we're asking him to come along. Like, God, I give you all, like I surrender it all to you to govern this situation, to govern this thing that I'm building. We can't just say it, and then when it comes down to God trying to shine light on different areas of what we're building, we want to cower back. So the title is exactly what it means: purging before building your new season. All right. So a lot of times your relationships, your environment and the relationships you are in are critical, and they affect your growth, they affect your momentum, they affect the success that you may have when you're building something. All right. And a lot of times we like to focus, I want to focus on relationships, right? So there's different things that you could do to build your season. There's different things that you could focus on to build your season, your new season. However, I want to focus on the relationships that's non-marital. That's what I want to focus on. Relationships that are non-marital. Okay. Just so that side note, I was on a track of talking about things when it comes to the prophetic, and things when it comes to being a prophet. I'm going to continue that. I just thought that it was very critical that I talked on this, because I know this is around the time where people are trying to build for the new season. And a lot of times they don't want to focus on some of the things that are hindering them from actually building right. So next weekend, I'm going to still continue on the path that I was going on. And next week, I'm going to be talking about the spiritual implications of giving to a false prophet, a false leader, a false organization, or a false church. All right. But I want to focus on friendships, right? I want to focus on this part of relationships, because there's different types of relationships, right? So I wanted to focus on friendships. I wanted to focus on the non-marital aspects, all right? So some people could have friends, they could have colleagues, they could just have people that they know. Many people do not know how to categorize people that they meet into different groups. I was one of them. I was one of them. It took me a very, very long time to realize it's not everybody that you can call a friend. It's not everybody that you meet, you just immediately categorize them as a friend. You have to learn how to classify that person as, hey, this is someone that I know for business. This is someone that I know, this is a work colleague. This is someone that I know for networking, right? This is someone that I know for business. And this is someone that I just know. I met them, I just know. I met them through a mutual person, I just know. And this is someone that I am calling a friend. Problem is, before we call a person a friend, we don't prove them. And I'm going to get into that. Like, we really don't. Again, I was one of them. We don't prove them, right? And it's not to say that I don't have friends now that I have proven. It's just that I have seen a pattern that I had a really bad way of just calling a person a friend. And then years later, when something happened, I go back to all of those flags that God was showing me that I chose to ignore. And I could have just prevented it had I just followed God's way, and had I just heeded to those signs and heeded to those warnings. All right. It is important to know how to group people before allowing people to have access in your life. That's the real reason why it's very important to categorize people that you meet. You don't just automatically put them in the friend zone. Every person in a different group will have a different level of access to your life. And when I say they have access to your life, meaning you invite them to your home, meaning you invite them to family gatherings, meaning you allow them into your personal affairs. So personal things that have happened to you, personal things you are going through, meaning you let them into a certain part of your business. You let them know certain things about your business. That's what I mean by different level of access to your life. So you could know many people, but they don't have access to your life. They don't know where your children go to school. They don't know, your children's birthday. They don't know how your children look. Many people can have different levels of access to your life. I don't need to really explain that. I believe that you guys understand what I mean by that. Knowing where to place people is another thing you must conquer before building in your new season. So if God is building something for you, right? It's almost like building the house. You're allowing God to be the foundation of what you're building. You're allowing Holy Spirit to surround to frame the walls, right? To frame the outside, the exterior. So whether you're framing it with plywood, whether you're framing it with block cement, depending on where you live, you frame it differently. And then it's all the inside. So all the inside is what you're asking God, hey, I'm coming to you. How big should I make this rule? How small should I make this rule? What should I prioritize? What is important to me in my life? So that's the same thing that you're going to do when you're building in this new season. You're asking God like, hey, all the other times, all the different seasons before, I excommunicated you, or I disobeyed you, or I just ignored a lot of the stuff. I pretended like I really wanted you to be a part of it. But then when it came down to it, I forgot what you said to me. So if you are in this season where you're like, God has been sending you the signs like, hey, this time, I want you to build it like this. This time, you're going to frame it like this. This time, these are going to be your focal point. These are going to be your priorities. When it comes to that, you have to remember knowing where to place people is another thing you can conquer before placing them in your new season. I'll tell you why. We have to understand that people can also hinder us, cause destruction, because we open up our mouth of what we're trying to do to the wrong person. I'll say that again. Sometimes it is us. It's not no one else. It is you. Because you didn't take the time to ask God like, hey, what am I going to do in this new season with the circle of people that I have around me? People at times will open up their mouth to the wrong person. And because they're in the thought like, oh, well, this person is just this, it seems like they're happy for me, not knowing a lot of times that can be the opening or the access that the enemy wants to be able to cause confusion, to be able to cause destruction, or to be able to cause derailment in what you're building. Because people turn, guys. People turn. And so the same way you do an annual physical checkup with the doctor, you're supposed to do a quarterly checkup, a semi-annual checkup with the circle that you have. And all the checkup is submitting them people to God and say, hey, God, is there anything that I need to do with the circle of people that I have currently? And God is either going to say, nah, you good. Or God is going to be saying, that one, don't open your mouth to them no more. Watch them. That one, don't talk about your personal affairs with. That one, don't say anything about whatever business endeavors you have. That one, no longer let them pray for you. Something is going on in their life. You don't want whatever that they're holding on to, whatever is plaguing in their life. It'll bounce off to you. The problem is a lot of people right now, especially now, more than ever. I'm sorry, guys, because I'm just trying to figure this out. So, especially now, a lot of people don't believe in a lot of the things of the spiritual realm. Regardless if you believe in stuff being spiritual or not, that doesn't stop the enemy from plaguing. That doesn't stop the enemy from sending traps. It just don't. It's either you're just going to be an ignorant believer or you're going to be a believer that is well equipped, that is knowledgeable with the word of God, and that understands rules of engagement. That, yes, there are times that the enemy will work through the people that are closest to you to be able to damage what you're building, to bring destruction to what you're building, to bring derailment to what you're building, or to be a burdensome or a trap like Jonah was for what you're building or what you're trying to get to. Learn to move in silence. So if you're building something, learn to move in silence. Learn to be quiet. Learn not to open up your mouth and says everything to everyone you rocking with. If it is, I'll give an example. I had to learn to move in silent on my own. No one didn't even teach me. I learned through trials. A little bit over 14 years ago, I was in that season of my life, I was planning on moving to a new city. I wanted to leave my hometown. And because I wanted to leave my hometown, originally I was supposed to move to another city. That city ended up not working out. It was just something so strategic. I really think it was really, I believe it was, I really believe that it was really God that kind of orchestrated that. So originally I was supposed to move to a new city. I put a hold on that. And I ended up wanting to move to another city. Now, the other city that I wanted to move to in that season, I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have any family there. I didn't know anything about work, like how everything was going to work, right? So I did what a lot of people do, which they think is normal. At that time, I was not submitted to the Lord. I was not submitted. I was just one of those, I believe in God. I pull up to church New Year's and that was it. I believe in God. I pull up to church New Year's. I may pull up on Easter and that's about it. Okay. And so I end up telling family members like, hey, I was thinking of moving this, that, and the third. And the minute I told all these family members like, hey, I was thinking of moving to this new city, it was like a whole derailment. As a matter of fact, the year that I was supposed to move, it actually got pulled back to the following year. But everything works out for the good of the ones who trust the Lord, okay? Everything works out for the good. But what I wanted you guys to pay attention to is the minute that I spoke to family members, they brought up all of the logical things, right? You don't know anyone, what you're going to do for work, you got to get a job, you got to do this, it's not safe, you're going to be by yourself, you're too far from family, you're too far from home. Da 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 da. It compared me to other people who had left home and then they came back. Obviously, it's not a good time. Around the time that I was moving, it was in the peak of the recession. Like it was in the peak, like right after the market crash. So it was in the peak, right? So you can only imagine jobs were low, money wasn't circulating. It's just a lot of things, right? But I learned because of that, everything went left. All of the things that I was planning prior to that, I had momentum. And the minute I told the family members and they knew about it, and all of the things that they said to me, it's like all of my momentum went down. Everything, and when I say everything like went left, I literally mean it. Apartment applications, apartments, it was just a lot. It was issues with the school that I was applying to. They lost my application. They couldn't find my application. Job application after job application, I couldn't find anything. And so what I did is when I realized everything was happening, I still did not want to lose, because I had my mindset like I'm gonna move. I need to move. I'm believing that things are gonna change in my life. And the reason why I was holding on to that so much is because, again, like I said, I believed in God. I believed in God. I wasn't acting right. But I believed in God. And I used to always listen to this radio station called Moody Radio. Now, Moody Radio, I'm not sure if it's nationwide, but I know it's a Christian radio station in South Florida. And I remember there was one particular time that really boosted my faith. There was a pastor that said some sermon. And I remember going to the Bible, and it was talking about how Abraham had to leave his family. And God allowed Abraham to leave his family to go basically to a land full of milk and honey. And when I read that story, I resonated with it so much. It was to the point that I said, okay, God, if you can do it for Abraham, if you can let him leave his hometown, let him leave all his family, and you could send him to the place where he didn't know no one, but he was able to prosper. He was able to find momentum. He was able to really do faith moves. I know you could do it for me. And so I held on to that. And so what I did is I started from the drawing board, and then this time I had the sermon and then the whole thing with the story of Abraham as my foundation, and I started to build from there. I made sure not to involve anyone. As a matter of fact, the only person that I involved was it was my boyfriend at the time. I involved him because my plans was to leave him anyways. And but I involved him to help me with the move. And I didn't involve any family member until like I already got approved for an apartment to the new city, everything. The minute I kept silent and I placed everything on God's foundation, the momentum started to build again. So, guys, in this building season, I didn't tell no one. I just told you I only told one person, which was my boyfriend at the time. I didn't involve my family until I already had got approved from the apartment, and I just needed a place to kind of put my furniture. I already bought brand new furniture and everything. They kept asking me when you was going to move, when you was going to move. I didn't tell anyone. As a matter of fact, I was waiting. I kept saying, I'm waiting for God to let me know when it's time to move. That's a whole nother story for another day. But I end up doing it, and I moved in the middle of the night, and no one didn't know I moved except my boyfriend at the time. And I think I called my mom to let her know, hey, I'm in the new city. That type of move in silence. Sometimes the area you're living in can be the hindrance from you building properly, whether it's a business, a career, a family, you trying to boost up your income, etc. So sometimes the hindrance could be the area that you're living in. That's something that you just have to take to God. All right. So a scripture that I wanted to kind of further boost you up with when it comes to that is Ecclesiastic 3:7. The King James Version says, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. So move in silence. I had to learn to keep silence when the accomplishments monetarily. Okay, yeah. So I also, one of the most recent things I had to learn is to keep silence on my accomplishments moment, like monetarily. That's another live for another day. To keep it short and simple, guys, y'all don't need to be put it all over the internet, the accomplishments and the moves and the money that y'all making. It sounds nice until until your finances and your accomplishments start to get attacked. That's what happened to me during the pandemic. God had warned me to not do any, to stop posting my accomplishments in 2020. I wasn't the type of person to like be all chauvinistic. I was just, trying to encourage people like, hey, I accomplished some things. You guys could do it too. But he warned me in 2020. He gave me for sure sign 2021. And 2022 is when I completely, a couple of things had happened and I was just like, yeah, I'm good. So guys, y'all, privacy is key. Not only when it comes to your personal life, but also when it comes to certain accomplishment, depending on the assignments that you have. With the assignment that I know that I had to completely not put nothing about my accomplishment, about monetary, nothing. It ain't nobody's concern. All right, people be plotting, guys. Like the thing y'all don't understand is people be plotting. And what people don't understand is Christian, no Christian. People be plotting. The thing is, you just don't want to be somebody's next meal. That's it. That's all I got to say about that. Don't end up being somebody's next meal ticket. People be plotting. All right, so let's focus on friends. All right, so before we get deep into friends, I want to put it out there. A lot people don't act stupid. There has been many times God have shown you signs. God have shown you patterns like, hey, this person that you have around you, you might want to cut them off. Friends or family. This person around you, you might want to hold back on what you say. This person around you, you may not want to bring them to your house no more. This person around you, you may not want to say that you around their circle. Like you may want to pull back. I think the problem is that like a lot of times it's people like to play stupid. People like to play naive, or people like to make excuses because they see the good or they see the good actions that that person have done in their life, not realizing, but a few months ago, you asked God to show you where you needed to change up. Now he's showing you where to change up, and now you're making excuses. Like, we can't have it our way. It's either going to be God's way or our way. Which one are you going to pick? Remember, building something in the right season will cause a fight or a war. Building something, I'll say that again. Building something in a ripe season will always cause a fight or a war. And a lot of times this fight and this war cannot be seen with our naked eye. It cannot be seen with our physical eye. Sometimes we could see it with our physical eye, right? If it's just that volatile. But a lot of times we cannot see it with our naked eye. Because you're building something, you already asked God to be the foundation of it. You're building it in a ripe season. It is always going to come with a fight or a war. And at times it's difficult to purge someone out your circle because you feel like the person is nice. They've been good to you. You have known them for X amount of years. The excuses go on, not knowing the enemy can use that exact person who you call a friend to cause destruction in your life. So take, for example, I put down a plant. Now, I was, one of the things I have seen about people who plant, or they like to say people that have the green thumb, is whenever you see a plant and they start to see, and this goes for indoor plants or even outdoor plants, outdoor plants, they have more warning signs of things that is causing that plant to basically lose its life. So you'll see brown spots around the leaves of the plant. Now those brown spots, I've always seen that, but anytime I saw videos on people who plant, when they see those brown spots, they always cut it off. Always. Whenever they seen the brown spots of the plants, they always cut it off. They also have this situation, it's called what is it called? Lateral shoots. And basically this is when when they will have issues on their stem. I put in other plants, they will have branches that grow from the side of a plant stem. These issues are called lateral shoots, must be removed to avoid damaging the plant or allowing diseases to enter the plant through the side of the stem. Now, with the people that, with the people that have plants where they have the brown stem, they cut it off. If they don't cut the brown spots off, you'll notice that the brown spots get bigger and bigger, and eventually it takes over the plant and to make the plant die. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this example towards the plant is because a lot of times we like to make excuses when God is like, you need to get this person out your life. You need to get this person out of your camp. And God is not telling you to water it. God is not telling you to make an alternative. He's literally saying, cut it off, remove it. Cut it off, cut off the relationship, remove the person from your circle, remove the person from your camp, remove the person from around you. As you can see with a plant, they don't play games. They cut off the brown spots. And then when it comes to the lateral shoot situation, they remove it. Why? Because if not, the brown spots is going to kill the plant. If not, the stem issues that can happen to the plant will eventually allow a disease to come in. So I want you to ask yourself, who have you kept in your circle amongst your friends that you have asked God over and over to shine some light before you go into a new season, before you build a new season? Who do you have in your circle? Who is around you? Who do you like to chop it up with? Who do you like to pick up the phone and talk to? Who do you like to pick up the phone and say when something happens, you take their phone calls, no matter what time it is, no matter what day it is, no matter what you're doing? Who do you speak to that is within your camp, within your circle, that is damaging your life spiritually, that is damaging your building season? That person is that person is the literal person that could allow a disease to come in, right, in your life, or that is causing death to an area of your life. Who? Just who? Ask yourself that. Just who? Proverbs 12:26 says, let me read Proverbs 12:26 in the New King James Version. I got it in the King James Version, but I like the breakdown a little bit better in the New King James Version. And so Proverbs 12:26 says, the righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked will lead for the way of the wicked leads them astray. Meaning, if you don't choose your friends carefully, let me clear this up. Sometimes the friends you have before you give your life to Christ may not be the same friends you have after you give your life to Christ, if you truly have an encounter. That's why just giving your life to Christ, I'll hold off on that. It may not be the same. Now, it would be lovely if once you give your life to Christ, you can pull some of your friends in for them to give their life to Christ as well. It would be lovely. But a lot of times it's not that. It is not so. Okay? A lot of times. Sometimes it is and sometimes it don't. The point of the matter is, if you are making Jesus Christ the foundation of everything that you do, if you are being governed by God's ways, God's commandments, God's word, right? You have to understand that who you call to be friend. I think the reason why a lot of people sometimes they don't think friendships to be that serious is because they don't understand the gravity of it. A friendship is it can be a covenant relationship. David and Jonathan had a covenant friendship, right? So some people's friendship could be like a covenant relationship. Some people's friendship could be like like a godly friendship, right? And some people's friendship could be like a friendship for a season. Regardless of the situation, when you call somebody a friend, it's like you are being vulnerable. Your spirit is being vulnerable to another person that you're not married to another person that you're not in like a personal relationship with. So Proverbs 12:26 is saying, hey, choose your friends wisely so they don't lead you astray. And so if you gave your life to Christ and you have friendships that it seems like it is causing destruction to your building season, did it like I just don't see how. I get it, but I just don't see how the signs are there. It's clear as day. It's a big banner sign. Move on. Move on. One of the easiest way to have a direct target, one of the easiest way for the enemy to have a direct target or influence on your life is through friendships. Why? I'm going to explain. Your guards are down. Your spirit is open. A lot of times they may have access to your life. The access you gave. The access you gave. They know things about you personally. A lot of times our love for people that like a lot of times depending if like and this happens a lot with longer relationship, we let our guards down, but we like to overlook stuff. We let our love for them, we let our like for them to overlook stuff. And because of that, y'all have to understand that the enemy, it tells us to be wise as a serpent. Why? Because serpents, they observe things, they observe patterns, they're looking, they're always plotting, always. And because we have this friend around us that we have not asked God about, we have not went to God to say, hey, I'm doing a little checkup. God, should I continue to have this person around me? We don't do that. We not knowing that now the enemy can use that friend to be able to have access and torment your life. Are you taking a video? Yes. To access your life. All right. And so let's look at Peter and Jesus. Now, my scripture for Peter and Jesus is Luke 22:31. But earlier in chapter 22 in Luke, there was the Last Supper. God was talking about a lot of parables. He was talking about, the time is now. He was preparing them. He was speaking a lot in parables and stuff. Excuse me. One of the things I want y'all to pay attention to is Peter was like a friend to Jesus. Y'all, they walked. They were going to different places together. They dined together. They slept. Like whatever headquarters that they found, all the apostles, they were all sleeping together, right? They were managing each other's characters, right? They shared experiences together, just like a friend. So they knew each other. They had spent plenty time with each other. Now, still, in Luke 22, verse 31, it says Jesus, it really says the Lord. But I'm saying, Jesus said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. Wait a minute. Simon didn't necessarily do anything wrong. If you read what Simon said, Simon was just doing, like, if you read what really happened right before that, it seemed like everything was normal. It seemed like it was just a normal supper, right? Even though it really wasn't a normal supper. it just seemed like it was one of those regular things, right? And there, one of the things that caught me was why did Jesus call Peter Simon? Simon was his previous name before he came and followed Jesus Christ. So prior to that, he was always known as Peter. Now Jesus is telling him Simon. Simon, Simon. And when he says that, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, meaning Satan is always trying to send plots against you. This man is always trying to do setups against you. Always. So even in that, right? And then we know about the whole situation where Peter denies Jesus. But this is just an example in Luke chapter 22, verse 31, that the enemy can enter into people even closest to you. No one is spared from this. So how do you discern, or how do you put yourself in a situation to make sure, like, hey, you're always presenting things to God. You're always saying, God, shine your light on this, shine your light on that. Is there something that I need to remove that is going to plague my life, that is going to cause destruction to what I'm building in this season? You cannot call anyone you meet a friend. Prove them before calling them a friend. Prove them, especially in this season. Now, a lot of times when you're building in a new season, it's not necessarily you getting new friends. It's God shining his light on people you need to remove yourself from. See, if you guys were able to see it spiritually, that the enemy, if God has been warning you about people that you need to remove from your life, from your circle, from your camp, before he can build something for you, if God was to able to open up your eyes to show y'all, hey, this person is in your camp is low-key an agent of the devil, or is being used by the devil to stop you from building what you're building in this season. And because of this person could delay you for 15 years. This person could delay you for 10 years. This person could delay you for 5 years. This person is low-key putting poisonous thing around you, and in the sense of word curses, or in the sense of what they're speaking. Maybe I will just not fight God so much. I knew, again, we all go through experiences, but we all go through experiences, and one of the things that can be detrimental is loyalty. I struggled for that practically all my life. Loyalty, loyalty, loyalty. But the thing is, you have to learn that your loyalty, first and foremost, is to God. It should always be to God first. Is it hard? Yes. Is it doable? Yes. And is it manageable with the Lord? Absolutely yes. Remember, a friend is a biblical friend. Let's talk about a biblical friend. A biblical friend. Someone you have allegiance to, someone you can tell your secrets to, someone that you can pray, that can pray for you in your private affairs, someone that might know your private affairs, someone that looks out for you, someone that will stand in the fire with you, someone that is not jealous of you, someone that doesn't sway you with flattery, someone that is not a yes man, someone that is not a habitual liar, someone that is accountable for their actions, someone who does not sit in a victimhood or a victim mentality, someone who is not covetous, someone who is not greedy. They're not greedy for money. They're not one of those people that's going to be desperate for money. They're willing to put anybody underneath the bus when it comes to you will see their selfish side when it comes to money, when it comes to getting themselves out of a bad situation. Someone who is prayerful. Now, with all the stuff that I'm giving you guys, I want y'all to start going to God with whatever signs He has been telling you about friends that you're holding on to. I want y'all to look, I want you to go to God about that. Godly friendships are Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys. And then another example of godly friendship is Naomi and Ruth. Now, you can talk to anyone, but it does not mean every single person that you talk to is your friend. Especially if you're like a minister of the gospel. Like, you could talk to anyone. That's not the issue. The issue is you can't call anybody a friend. Someone that's not willing to compromise. That's another biblical trait of a friend. You can't have people that's willing to compromise for anything and then you're gonna call them your friend. The enemy can sure come in and use it as a snare against your life. So, 7 steps to help you in your building seasons when it comes to friendships, when it comes to the people you have around you, when it comes to your circle. All right. First thing, the number one thing nobody don't want to do, but listen, it's either you want to build or what. We're like, what we doing? We gonna build and we're gonna build it right. We're gonna build it. We are gonna build it right. We're gonna build it on the foundation and the Word of God. We're gonna build it correctly so that when it's gonna flourish and it's gonna flourish properly. All right. First thing, ask God to shine a light on all your relationships. So, all your relationships, colleagues, people who have access to you, people you call your friends, people who you say you know, your circle of people, your people that you hang around, the people that you link up with every weekend. Ask God to shine a light on all of your relationships. If you are unsure, if you feel like you did not get an answer, I want to encourage you. A lot of times when we're uneasy and we cannot gain clarity on something, that is a sure sign for you to fast. That is a sure sign for you to take that one particular situation and fast. It is up to you and God. God can direct you. He can tell you, hey, do a 2-day fast, do a 3-day fast, do a 5-day fast, and you could do a certain time period, right? So you could do it from 6 to 6, 6 to 3, whatever it is, however God guides you. And if you don't understand why, it's because a lot of times if what you're fighting against is such a yoke, it's like a pit in your stomach, like, but you believe that God is telling you, but it's like you're fighting thoughts, you're fighting what you're seeing with your naked eye. We don't go by that. To break that yoke of bondage, you can use Isaiah 58. That gives you a template of fasting. It gives you, hey, what to expect with fasting. You ask God, hey, you agree with God, however much days it's going to take for you to fast. And I believe and use scriptures in regards to it. And sure enough, you should get your answer with God. You should. Why? Because fasting kills the flesh. And a lot of times when you remove flesh out of the way and you are truly in your pure state of your spirit, man, it is so easy to hear God. It is super easy to hear God. Pay attention. So step number 2, pay attention to any signs or patterns after you do this. So actually, after you ask God to shine the light on your relationships, so God could tell you, hey, if you need to do any switcheroo in your relationships, you need to pay attention to the signs and the patterns. The signs be there and the patterns be there. So sometimes this is what it could look like. It could look like a situation happened and God told you to stay away from that person, and then you try to rekindle that relationship with that person again, as if you thought that the things were going to be different. But God shows you signs like, hey, you need to pull back from that person. The other signs could be you made you started a friendship with someone, and you all of a sudden your dreams went away and you can't get your dreams back. If you are an avid dreamer and that happens, do step 1 with the fasting. And step 2, start writing down all the signs and the patterns when that happen. Other signs that can happen is you can't keep no money around this friend. Other signs that can happen is all of a sudden things like weird things just happening out of nowhere. And it has continued and continued. And it's to the point where you have become so immune to it, but it's not normal. Pay attention to the signs and the patterns. They be there. They absolutely be there. You got a new promotion, this person starts side-eyeing you. You got a new business, this person starts saying slick things to you. You got a new opportunity, this person try to bring up your past over and over and over and over and over. You got a new recognition from someone. All of a sudden, whenever this person gets around the public eye, or wherever you're getting your recognition, this person always wants to speak negative things around you. The signs and the patterns be there, guys. They be there. Number 3, obey God's voice. Obey him the first time. Obey him the first time. This step I know because I experienced it. I actually experienced it several times, right? It took me a while to like just obey God's voice. And even now, some of it I'm still experiencing the repercussions because they were so grave, right? However, at the end of the day, I'm accountable for that because I wouldn't have to stay in some of the repercussions that I'm going through, or the consequences that I'm going through now in my personal life, had I just listened to God the very first time, right? Because at the end of the day, when you don't obey God's voice, guess who gets the end of the stick? You do. Not the other person. You do. And when I say repercussion, I'm talking about repercussion for not obeying God's voice when he told you to cut that person off from your life. So, and I believe in 2016, I believe, around 2016, I believe, there was a friend that I had known this person for quite a few years. And I had remembered little by little, it's like I just had got the urge not to tell the person a lot of stuff that I was going through. So I stopped. That was the first sign. This went on for a couple of years. So anything personal, I just wouldn't tell the person whatsoever. I would not tell the person. And little by little, I noticed myself pulling away from this person. And while I was pulling away from this person, God was also purging other friendships out of my life. And so I wasn't, so much was going on. I just wasn't really paying attention like that. And then, I believe during the pandemic, no, I believe in 2019, something else happened with that same particular friend. They had people in their ear, and about a lot of things that were going on. And I remember even with that whole situation, I really wanted to dead that situation. But at the time, because I really loved the person, I was just like, no, maybe they're just going through it. Maybe they're just going because of the situation that they were going in their personal life. Maybe they're not thinking it through. That was always what I like to do. Make excuses for them. When you see what a person is showing you, believe them the first time. When you see what a person is showing you, believe them the first time. And so, sure enough, in the beginning of 2020, so fast forward, I still felt like I really needed to cut this person off, but I did it. Even though God was sending me the signs, he has already told me several times, hey, you cut this person off. I did it. I kept holding on to it. So in 2023, I end up seeing the person again, the beginning of the year. I end up seeing them. And when I seen them, they were in a really bad case, like a really, really, really bad case. And now let me tell you how the enemy works. So 2023, this is post. I had fully submitted my life to God in May of 2022. It's not to say that I didn't have no mistakes. I had mistakes, but I have learned from them. And so in 2023, I ended up situation happened. And I was able to see, I've never seen a person face to face dealing with tormenting spirits in the sense of they were my personal relationships. Like I've seen it in a church service or something like that. But in my personal life, I never really seen it up close and personal. So I was able to see it up close and personal. I didn't realize that this person was dealing with tormenting spirit, which is crazy because the end of the 2022, I was doing a life decision and I had contacted this person about my life decision, not knowing that I was never supposed to ask them. God already had told me never to talk to this person about my personal issue. But because I was so out of it, because I wanted to answer now, and I probably was tricking myself into, well, maybe this person will align with me, I end up asking them a personal life decision issue the end of 2022, not knowing the entire time they were dealing with a tormenting spirit. So in 2023, April of 2023, I end up seeing it. And by the end of July of 2023, that thing ended up manifesting. I ended up being on the phone with them with the situation. And then following that situation, they ended up sending through text message, cussing me out, saying all type of stuff about me, saying all type of stuff about my family, saying everything that had happened that they knew about me from 14 years ago. They divulged everything. They divulged everything. I mean, everything unmanageable, everything. If this person had went to the blogs, oh yeah, it would have been real spicy. And in the midst of them doing this, all I could think about was God had been told me to get rid of this person. All I could think about was it's sad that it had to get to this point. It had to get to this point where now there's no coming back from that. I don't have no beef. We don't have no beef. It's all good on my end. If I ever see you, I'll say hi or whatever. But we could never be friends again. Never. But it had to get to that point because I'm assuming God knew that any other way I was going to make excuse. So he had to have no way and make it cut immediately. Mind you, I already had something that had happened to me with a friendship in 2021. then 2022, it was, 2022 was good. Then come 2023 for this. So I say this to say, obey God's voice. Why? Because if I was on an assignment and this person was still in my life, the enemy would have had full access. The problem is they didn't know about a lot of my personal issues because I had stopped for years. But to see a tormenting spirit, I'll give you an example. Again, I didn't know, right? I don't remember if it was, I believe it was 2023, either 2022 or 2023. I was away for a business work trip, and I remember calling. Me and the person end up speaking, and then I was telling them like, "Hey, I completely changed my life. This, that, like I'm trying to, I'm talking good. I listen. I completely submitted to God. I had a radical change, had a radical encounter. I'm telling them about it." And so I was explaining them like, hey, I'm gonna finally just do God's will. I'm not gonna fight God about it. I'm not gonna disobey God about it. And they were like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do live teaching when God tells me, hey, it's go time. And until then, right now, I'm just studying. I've been praying a lot. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. And while I'm telling this person, they end up, again, it wasn't the person. It was the tormenting spirit. The whole conversation switched and they were like, well, I know you could see, so what do you see in me? I said, well, I was so taken back. I was like, wait, what? Excuse me? It's like, yeah, I know you could see. So what can you see? Tell me, what can you see in me? Can you see anything in me? And I was just like, I'm not a psychic. It's like, well, I know you could see. And I'm like, and I'm not a psychic. I'm like, I don't know where you like what you getting out this conversation, but that's not how it works. So okay, so you can't ask God to see anything in me. I said I could, but I wouldn't. And even if I could, like God don't work like that. It is at his time and his purpose and his will. That's what I mean by that. That was when that happened, I said, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna play with the devil. The devil is bold out here. I'm not gonna play with the devil whatsoever. And this was a tormenting spirit that this person has. So obey God's voice and obey him the first time. And if you don't know what God's voice, if you trying to figure out what it means by obeying God's voice, go back to the last thing God has told you when it comes to your circle of friends, when it comes to the circle of people you got around you, when it comes to the people that you're speaking to you, your personal life about, your personal affairs about, whoever that you have around you, whoever that you hang out on a weekly or a monthly basis, whoever is praying for you. There's protection in obeying God's voice. I don't have the scripture yet, but there's a protection in obeying God's voice. Submit to God's instruction, right? So the example that I have is with Joshua when God had told Joshua to tell the people, hey, don't take the accursed thing from the people in the land. After they went around Jericho 7 times, they were given strict instructions not to take the accursed things. And Joshua chapter 7, verse 11. So in Joshua 6, from 16 to 19, this was the instructions from the Lord when God said, hey, before you go, tell your people, round them up, not to take anything, none of the accursed things. They could take the gold, they could take the silver, they could take, I believe it was the bronze. I believe it was the bronze. Everything else, they must not touch it. They must not touch it. They must not touch it. Don't touch. God called it the accursed thing. Joshua chapter 7, verse 11 to 12, they were supposed to go up and win this battle. They couldn't win the battle. Joshua went to God to say, hey, I thought you said we was going to win this battle. God has said, you have people in your camp that touched the accursed thing. They touched the accursed thing. And so there are times that you can invite a person in your life, and that person can be the accursed thing. Ever since that person came in your life, nothing has been going good for you. Ever since that person has come into your life, you got all type of spiritual attacks, all type of spiritual battles. Ever since you let that person in your house, ever since you gave that person a room, ever since you gave that person a help, you helped that person get out whatever situation, your life has turned upside down. Your money has went dry. You fighting with your old lady. You fighting with your old man. I don't know if people know what that term is, but you fighting with your wife. You fighting with your husband. Ever since. So there are times people can be the accursed thing. So after that, God has to give Joshua instruction on how to turn that around. Now, I would be 38 hot. We done lost the battle because of this. Do y'all know how severe that is? So submit to God's instruction. If God is giving you an instruction, cut them off. Remove them. Don't talk to them. Don't speak to them. Delete their number. Whatever instructions God is telling you, submit to God's instruction. After that, whoever you have lost, especially with friendships, you pray for forgiveness. You pray for forgiveness. Now, this is the part you could stay here as long as you want. There were certain relationships. It took me a long time. It took me a very long time. With that particular girl, with that particular woman, it didn't take me a long time only because I knew what I was dealing with, and it had turned into a whole tormenting spirit. It had turned into literally a sped up spiritual engagement, spiritual battle, spiritual deliverance situation. I honestly, when all of the spews that the enemy was using her to say against me, I was just condemning the words, I rebuking the words, and I just felt bad at that point because I knew this person since childhood, and to see them in that state, I was just like, bro, like, give your life. If you ain't willing to give your life to Christ, then it was just a sad situation. However, there are other relationships, friendships that I had that was it was completely done, or whatever the case may be, where I had to mourn over them. Like, I mourned over them. It took me a while to get forgiveness. However, I want to give you guys the scriptures about Matthew 6 from 14 to 15. And the reason why I want to show you why is it critical for forgiveness is because I want to give you what took me so long to understand. But once I found out from my encounter, you ain't got to, I'm not giving the enemy no footstool to keep me on no spiritual prison because I don't want to forgive somebody. No, no, no. I honor my life way too much. Matthew 6, verse 14 to 15. And it says, for if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. And what I want you guys to understand is forgiveness is pretty much you getting your pardon from Jesus Christ. Forgiveness is you getting your pardon. Let me say it like this. Forgiveness is like you sitting on a bench to get charged for a trial. Unforgiveness is like you sitting on a bench and you in the heavenly courts and you're sitting on the bench, right? And Jesus is your advocate. And Jesus is telling you, hey, you need to forgive this person so I could get you off the bench and pardon you. When you don't forgive people, it's like you literally are turning your back. It's like you literally are giving up your rights to become pardoned, and you're turning your back to say, nope, I'd rather just sit on this bench and just get accused by get accused by Satan, and you could just go on. So it's like you literally are keeping your soul in a prison cage. You are keeping what you're building in a prison cage. You're keeping your life in a prison cage. You're keeping your life sitting on prison row, death row, whatever you want to call it. And God is literally like, hey, if you want me to pardon you, you got to pardon them first. So I want y'all to think about that. Whenever it's a tough situation, I understand. But you just have to continue to say, God, I forgive them. Help me to forgive them. Help me to forgive them. God, I forgive them. God, help me to forgive them. Let me to forgive them with all my heart, my soul, my mind. Continue. If that's all you can say, you can't say nothing else. Baby, say that thing for as long as you can until you feel the release. You keep it moving. So I want y'all to think about that. Unforgiveness is like you purposely sitting yourself on death row bench, and that means you don't want to get pardoned by Jesus Christ. When you have unforgiveness. The minute you say, okay, God, I forgive them, help me to forgive them, help me to show me to forgive them. Or I like what my Tiffany says, let me help me to release them into the freedom of my forgiveness. The minute you do that, it's like you have lifted yourself off of the bench row, and Jesus comes and he said, okay, since you pardoned them, I'm going to pardon you now. So forgiveness. Number 6, ask God to restore you. Pray God will heal your heart first. Go through the process of having God to refine your character, your past hurt, your pain, so you don't push away your future godly friends away. The scriptures that I have to restore you is Psalm 73, verse 26, and then Psalm 147, verse 3. You cannot expect new godly friends with an unhealed attitude. That's how people in the world operate. That's where you see the peoples that always talking about, oh, they don't have friends, they can't keep friends, this, that, and the third. Yeah, they can, because they probably have a nasty attitude. They're probably very jealous. They probably are habitual liars. They're probably ungenuine. They're selfish. They have selfish attitudes. So of course they're not going to have friends. And if you have any of those characters, you have to ask God to help you in those characters and to refine those things. You ain't going to keep any friends with those type of attitudes. If you're a person like you like sleeping around with people's spouses and they're married and stuff like that, that's an internal thing that you need to be healed from, that you need to be delivered from, and you need to be crucified. So again, you cannot expect new godly friendships in the future with an unhealed attitude. You know the meaning of what a friendship is now. You need to prove the person. All right. And then number 7, wait well while God replaced those friendships that you lost, or that you had to remove, or that you had to cut off. But you're waiting well on God's timing. Why are you waiting well? See if you can have a community. That's one of the reasons for a local church. Remember, the church is like a hospital. You may find good people, you may find bad people. At the end of the day, check your heart, check your intentions on why you're there. What do you need in the season that you're in? What do you need from that church in the season that you're in your building season? All right. So that's really one of the places of those. So if you could find a local community, find a local church that you can attend, If you cannot, you feel like you can't align with anyone, find a local community that you can attend that can help you steward your waiting well season. That is while you're trying to learn about God and you're trying to build yourself in God. All right. Hobbies. And then, of course, while you're waiting well for God to bring in new godly relationships, do your work for God. My scripture for that is Isaiah 40, verse 31. This is the last one that I will be reading. And y'all pray for me. Hopefully I get a new cell phone stand. Somebody done broke my cell phone stand during the Thanksgiving situation. All right, so Isaiah 40, verse 31. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. I gave so many good nuggets. I hope you could go back, watch the replay, watch the video so you could write it down so that you have the steps to just reevaluate the relationships that you have. And don't be afraid of it. God, whatever God is showing you about removing, cutting, or taking people out of your life, it's for a reason. You can't build with those faulty people. You can't build with those faulty foundation. A plant can't grow with those brown spots. And a plant cannot grow when the stems are growing like out, it's damage on the side. It's eventually going to try to kill it. So I love you. I want you to be prosperous. I want you to build. I want you to love the season that you're building in. And I actually want you to ask God to shine his light on your relationship so that you can purge what you need to purge out to build well, to build prosperous, and to build successfully in this new season. I love you guys. Until the next one.